What's good, everybody? It's your boy back with another reaction video. I'll be reacting to 3 Nightmarish true Christmas horror stories. I hope these ain't the same. I should have looked at these videos first, but at least like a few seconds so I know they're not the same thing. But they're not the same time, so, and they're from the same person. So I imagine they're not the same. They didn't just narrate, just put the same narration in this other. We'll just change one out. But it's Christmas. Only 4 more days to Christmas. But yeah, this is the Christmas horror stories extravaganza. I'm tired. I don't know why I'm so tired. Probably because I ran for almost an hour. Trying to get this weight down. I can't. I got in a tussle not that long ago. Somebody, they look like they were quite, like at least a decade younger than me. And I got tired. I got them down, got them in full Nelson ground. But I was like, man, I used to be able to whoop dudes like that. Like it was nothing. Even some dudes like in like boxing where people had training and stuff. Nah, so, man, I let myself get too out of shape. I like shit like this. Like I could be in some horror shit, and I live in Illinois, so it snows here and it be deep sometimes. And then I can't outrun them because I ain't got the stamina no more. And I can't outfight them. I have the stamina I'm not used to. So I guess I can still knock a motherfucker out. One hit. Right here. Down like that nerve. And just put him to sleep. Oh, fuck. It's like when I get sleepy, it's like when I get drunk, like I talk a lot, which is weird. You would think I would talk less. Anyway, let's get into this 13 minutes. Here we I keep thinking I've seen
this happened back at a magical, delicate age when I still believed in Santa Claus. It was Christmas Eve night, or technically Christmas at that point. The time, I have no idea. All I know is it was late and everyone in my house was probably asleep. I woke up randomly to what I don't know, but I was probably extremely thirsty. I had to get out of my bed and walk all the way downstairs to the kitchen to get a glass of water. There were night lights on in the living room and kitchen, so I didn't have to turn on any lights to see where I was going. Whenever I was thirsty when I was a little kid, I'd always decide to finish the glass in the kitchen instead of bring it up to my room. I don't know why, just one of those stupid things I did as a kid. As I was sipping the water,
I used to do that as a kid.
I heard noises come from down in the den, where we had our Christmas tree. It sounded like a big bag. I peered my head around the wall leading down the stairway to the den, but it was a little too dark to see who could be down there.
Basically a white man.
I actually thought maybe it was my mom, so I started walking down the stairs, and the rustling of the bag stopped. I turned on the couch side lamp, and there I was, greeted with a massive man, both in height and size, wearing a red suit and hat and a familiar long white beard. It was Santa Claus. He waved me over, and I nervously but excitedly walked over to him. He patted my head and said he was just delivering my presents from his black bag. I looked at the bag, which seemed to be full of small boxes. I tried to get a peek in the bag, but he stopped me and said, "No, don't do that. It's a surprise." I noticed there were already some presents under the tree. He turned me around and whispered in my ear I need to go back to bed. For some reason I didn't go. I just turned around and kept looking at Santa. Eventually, he actually started walking me up the stairs, telling me we need to be quiet. He asked me which way my room was, and then he told me to go up the second flight of stairs. That was when I actually obeyed him. I looked down the stairs when I was at the top, and all I saw was the eerie figure of the Santa Claus looking up at me. I realized he turned off the nightlight as I was walking up the stairs. I went to my room and shut the door, excited that I just saw Santa. As I tried to fall back asleep, I heard a loud bang from downstairs in the den. The sound traveled all the way back up to my room. I assumed that was Santa leaving the house. The next morning, I woke up early to my mom's screams downstairs. I ran down to the den, where my mom and dad already were, to a disturbing and confusing scene for my young self. There were no presents under the tree, and the sliding window was broken. I don't mean the glass was shattered, I mean it was slammed shut so hard it got knocked off the sliding mechanism.
The hell
I confusedly asked my parents what happened, and explained that I saw Santa last night.
Wow.
When I told them this, they frantically tried getting as much info out of me as possible. My dad called the police, and when I asked him about the story for fresh details before writing this, he said the 911 operator said on the line that 2 other calls for the same incident had come in that morning. Apparently a man dressed as Santa Claus was targeting certain houses with accessible windows, and he was stealing the gifts under their Christmas trees. I believe there's a special place in hell for that man. My parents had to tell me later that day that Santa isn't real, and that should anything like that ever happen again, not to trust it.
They were like, you gotta grow up now, because you could at least stopped, told us. Like, now you thought that motherfucker was real, you just let him take our shit.
I once worked as a night security guard for a brief, horrible part of my life.
Bitch, we got a damn chimney.
But for the longest time, a mall in Chicago, which I'll leave the name out so that the story can in no way get traced back to me. As the lone night security guard in a huge city mall, it was very relaxing and laid back. But of course, working graveyard hours was the worst, especially when I had to do it on Christmas Eve night. I did my regular pacing back and forth the wide halls of the mall, occasionally having a seat by the big center Christmas tree which would stay lit 24/7. After getting a coffee from the security lounge section, I stepped back into the hall and noticed all the way on the other side of the mall, a light was on in one of the stores. A light that wasn't on before, I swear it. No one was supposed to be in the mall besides me. I jogged over to the store and set my coffee down under a plant. It was a jewelry shop. I tried opening the door, but it was locked. So how could anyone be in there? The light in the store suddenly started flickering, so naturally I had to chalk it up as faulty wiring, false alarm. I knelt down to pick up my coffee again, and as I looked up, I saw someone's head behind the front counter of the store. Just their head, like they were hiding. But it happened so fast. One moment there was light, the next darkness, and when the light flicked back on again, the head was gone. I literally rubbed my eyes and shook my head, wondering was I seeing things.
Oh boy.
I took my master keyring off my belt and fiddled for the key to the store. I didn't know where the light switch was, and to be honest, I was way too freaked out to check behind that counter with nothing but a flashlight.
Master key.
I shut the door and relocked it and walked back to my post by the Christmas tree.
He's a guard.
I started chugging my coffee because I really thought I was losing it after seeing what I saw. The lights in that store all the ways down on the other side of the hall were still off, but I heard a click and then a bang echo down in my direction, followed by someone running across one side of the hall to the other, before disappearing in an intersecting exit hallway. I sprang up and almost spit out the remainder of my coffee. I ran down the hall till I came to the intersecting smaller hallway. This hallway, which led to one of the exits, had a bunch of massage chairs, coin-operated kiddie rides, and the public restrooms. I didn't see anywhere else that person could have gone besides the restroom, as the exit doors were all locked from both sides. I got to the door of the men's bathroom and stopped, once again faced with the fear of confronting whoever was in that mall with me. I cracked the door open just slightly, enough for me to start speaking into the bathroom, saying whoever's in here needs to get out before I call the cops. There was a crying and moaning type noise coming from inside the restroom.
Oh shit.
I opened the door fully and realized it was coming from one of the stalls. I repeated what I said at the door, but the crying sounds didn't stop. I knelt down in front of the stall to get a peek under, and I saw 2 black shoes facing the door, facing me. It seemed the person was just facing the stall door, making these crying noises. The crying stopped, and then the next thing I saw was the person on the other side of the stall quickly get on their knees and look under the door back at me. I recognized it as the same person from behind that counter in that store. I got back on my feet and left the bathroom to call the police and explain the situation. As a security guard, I never encountered anything like this overnight, and I did know how to deal with it. I definitely did not want to make it physical. A couple police officers came to the doors at the end of the hall, and I let them in. We all went to the men's bathroom again.
And
the stall door was still shut, and the man was still inside.
Oh, I'm surprised.
For the longest time, the officers demanded he come out with his hands up. After a while of him refusing to listen, the male officer started kicking in the stall door until it broke open. The two officers apprehended the nut job inside the stall. As they walked him out of the mall, though, the man had his head turned to look at me the entire time. I looked away. His dead eyes staring into my soul genuinely disturbed me. He looked like he wanted to kill me. Before he was put in the back of the police car, he said my name, and I immediately got the chills. The officers said they would find out who he is and everything, and they went on their way.
What's your name?
My shift ended a few hours later, and for the remainder of my time working at that mall, I was always paranoid every time I'd turn a corner that he'd be standing there.
Ready to fuck you up. Well, I guess he got a name tag. Probably that's what he saw it.
Our parents had our youngest sibling much later than they had my brother and I. This happened last year when I was 18, my older brother was 24, and our youngest sibling Rachel was just 2.
Damn,
I was home from college for winter break. My older brother would be returning home from out of state in a few days, and my parents were on a couple's vacation.
I thought you were gonna say like
It was about a week before Christmas, and I was tasked with taking care of Rachel until my parents got back. My time watching Rachel consisted of a lot of sitting around the house, having friends over, and just watching TV and movies. I would let Rachel play in the living room with her toys as I'd watch TV with no lights on but the Christmas tree, which I always find to make watching TV a lot more relaxing.
Horror stories.
When Rachel started to get tired, I brought her up to her room, changed her, and put her in the crib upstairs. I made sure to turn on the baby monitor as my parents did every night just to make sure I could hear her if she got restless. Something to note, Rachel's room shares a bathroom with my mom and dad's room. So basically, both my parents' and Rachel's rooms are connected to a bathroom, which thus connects the 2 bedrooms in a sense. I went back downstairs to watch TV. I think I was watching The Grinch when sound started coming from the baby monitor. Distorted, human-like noises. It didn't sound like Rachel, so I hurried back upstairs to Rachel's room. I burst in so quickly and aggressively that she immediately awoke and started crying. I looked around the room naturally. Then I picked Rachel up and started gently rocking her. But I realized this didn't help. She was probably too big for it. So I put her back down in the crib and started tickling her, then gently whispering her back to sleep. When she had her eyes closed again, I left the room. A few minutes later, I heard Rachel crying again through the baby monitor. I ran up to see what's wrong, and she was standing in her crib, pointing at the bathroom door, which was cracked open. I honestly didn't remember if it had been cracked open like that earlier or not. I went to check the bathroom, and it was clear. I told her calmly she's imagining.
Then I get punched in the face.
I wasn't sure how much she understood of what I was saying, but after a few minutes in there with her, I got her to settle back down. Once again, I went down to the living room to continue watching TV. The orange light on the baby monitor once again started going off. I felt like I was in a horror movie scenario. I could distinctly hear a man's whispering coming
inside
from the baby monitor.
house.
I ran back up to that room faster than ever, burst through the door to Rachel's crying again. I went to pick her up to get her out of there, and when I turned for the door, I looked into the dark bathroom, which now had the door wide open. There was a man in my parents' room, and he started walking through the bathroom towards me and Rachel.
Oh, fuck.
I ran out of the house to the neighbor's house while holding Rachel. Our neighbor Judy
give me the baby.
Let me use her phone to call the cops. They didn't find anyone, but Judy let us stay the night at her place regardless. The next morning, Judy went back to my house with me to look around as support. The house seemed clear. However, I couldn't help but look around the house to try and find out how he got in, but I just couldn't, and it made no sense. A couple weeks later, my mom sent me to the attic to put some of the Christmas decorations away, and you wouldn't believe what I found up there. In the corner of the attic was a bed of blankets and a pillow, hidden behind a bunch of ripped up boxes stacked up as a wall. I immediately associated it to that man in our house. We have no idea how long that man was actually in our house for.
I got so many of these stories. It's always a homeless person staying in their house, either in their attic, in their basement, in like I remember that one I saw. It was like a woman, and she was like above the door in this guy's. I think it was an apartment, and he had like a space above the door where she would go up there and sleep and be there all night until he left to go to work the next day. And then he had like a camera where, well, actually, she actually would come down and she peed like in the sink and stuff. And I was like, he said he saw food was missing and all this. I'm like, and when he saw that she looked, her hair was all crazy. Like, I always thought that is so weird. Like, to be, like, how the fuck did they get in the attic? Especially in some houses I've been in it where you can't get to the attic unless you come in the house and go through the door, like the attic door. Now I've seen some houses that have like windows on outside. Somehow I'm guessing maybe if they didn't go through the house, especially houses that have like 2 or 3 floors. Like my brother's house, he has 3 floors. So you have to get through the ground floor, go up the second floor, and then up the 3rd floor, which the 3rd floor is just, it looked like the 3rd floor used to be the attic, even though the attic is much smaller. Like that used to be the attic, and whoever lived in the house before turned it into like a room. So now it's just one big giant like bedroom. Yeah, that's what they use it for. But above that now it's like an attic, but it's much smaller, of course, because they turned the back part, which used to be an attic, into a room. And that made that, like, you had to get past all that. Like I said, you had to break in when they're not home and do that, and then just sleep there. Like in most areas that I've been in, like helping friends and stuff like that, they have no installation. So if you stay in a cold place, then it's I mean the heat rises, but still it's gonna be cold because there's no installation. So the heat's not gonna be able to stay in there. It's gonna go right out. But yeah, that's good. Like I've heard so many of these stories on YouTube, and it's always somewhere in there where it's a homeless person staying. It was one that like someone was underneath this woman's bed for like 2 months. I think it was a woman. I don't know, but I was like, they underneath your bed for 2 months. Like, wow. I guess you never look underneath. People never really think to look underneath their beds, but unless you put stuff under there. You're like, jeez. They lived, especially if they, like, unless they would wait for you to leave and then they would wash up when you were gone. But some of these people like are homeless and they look disheveled and they look dirty. I'm like, you didn't smell that? Like they must. Anything like unless your room is musty. But like, sheesh. But that's scary, especially like that. Like now that person, the last story, they probably left right after they got seen, so they didn't come back. But he found a bed and they made pretty much a fort, so to block them. Yeah, and then they had a pillow there. That it's almost scarier to find out that someone's been staying in your house rather than actually seeing that person. Now they saw this person and then he found out later this person had just been staying there. They didn't even know. But it's like you never knew some stuff. But you just say you heard like footsteps or something, and you like I've heard. Well, at least I thought I heard footsteps on my roof, and I was like, now I don't have an attic, so there's nowhere to stay up there. But plus there's nowhere to get to it from outside anyway if you did. So they would have to come in the house, come in because I do have like a thing up there where you can't crawl, but it's not an attic. It's like basically like a crawl space. Like you use barely enough room for somebody to crawl up there. Like you had to be like 100. You couldn't be any bigger than like 170 pounds to crawl up there, like because it's that tight. But because it's really not made for it. There's nothing up there, so there's no point really going up there. But it's just there, I guess. But anyway, but yeah, I thought I heard like footsteps, and funny enough, that was actually someone just walking, my neighbor walking into her backyard. And she said she had like rocks, like square like rock basically that she walks on the walkway. And it was her and another guy, and it was him because he had boots on when I looked out my window. But like, never made. I was laying down. I heard that because it sounded like you. Like it was only like 3 steps, and like I said, I know it couldn't be up there because there's not enough room for anybody to walk up there. But that scared the mess out of me. And I was like, the fuck? But yeah, it was done. But anyway, like that's I don't know, to me that would be scary if I went up there and I found a cot, like with like a sleeping bag and a pillow and a bunch of like torn up papers and magazines and stuff like up there. That would freak me. I come like, how long they been here? I don't know, they still in the house somewhere, they coming back. Like, now I gotta search the whole house. Like, that would freak me out. Anyway, hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to hit the thumbs up button down below. Should hit the bell if you want to be notified when I upload a video. New here, hit the subscribe button. Should to comment, share this video on your various different social media platforms. And I'll see y'all next video. Peace.